Manika, welcome to the 20-something podcast. Manika is an ambassador for These Girls Run, which is the UK's leading all-female running and wellness club. She's a 2-time marathon runner and an all-round brilliant person. Manika is someone who is a real example of women supporting women, which she does through her running. She has also experienced moving to London as a 21-year-old, navigating meeting new people, building friendships in her 20s, and creating a life here. Manika, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bex.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Hopefully you like that intro. I always just try to give like a roundup of everyone, and
it's
like,
quite
oh,
cute.
Yeah. But also I think it just points out, like, my guest last week was like, God, it's weird when someone's saying that about you, but all these things
I think
because
you never recognise what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
In day to day, that actually hearing it from someone else, you think, oh my God, yes, I do that, you know, because it's such your norm to do.
Yeah.
But thank you.
All right. So with all my guests, I just like to ask them to give an overview of their 20s. Obviously, this is the 20-something podcast. So yeah, if you could just give us an overview.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? I feel like it's been a blur. It's sort of all meshed into one.
Yeah.
I moved to London when I was 21 or just fresh out of university.
Yeah.
And navigating that was quite strange, I think. I think navigating life as a 22-year-old after university in itself is just a whirlwind.
Yeah.
And then coupled with that, it was COVID. So I sort of split it into two. I feel like I think of things pre and post COVID because they're just two completely different people.
Yeah.
And COVID changed everything for me, like everyone. I ended up moving back home for a little bit. And then I feel like my London journey really started when I came back. So I was, 23, 24, surrounded by a very social group of friends. We were just going out. It was great fun. It was what anyone you'd think any 20-something would do. But I feel like it's really only been the last 18 months to 2 years where I've really settled into life in London, and I feel like it's my home. And a lot of that is down to the people that I've met on the way and my run club and my friends. So yeah, it's just been a journey, and I'm 27, so I know that my 20s aren't over yet, but I feel like, and I was saying this to you this morning, that every year is just so different. So I'm looking back and I'm like, oh my God, even 2 years ago, my life was very different, or the person that I was so very different.
Yeah.
And I think it's just such a growth that you're on with, even within the 7 years that I've been in my 20s. And I know even the last 3 years will probably bring so much more change and growth. So it's been good, but I really feel like I've only lent into myself and become myself over the last sort of year and a half.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think, because I'm like, I actually now feel like an adult, and I still don't feel like an adult. More of an adult than I was, say, at 21, but it's been crazy.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And that's why with this podcast, I wanted to kind of show that, because, it's a 20-something podcast, but your 20s are such a big period of time. And like you say, the person who you were at the beginning of them to even 2-3 years ago is completely different, and who you'll be in the last 3 years of it. And then carrying it on, like, you can change so much. And that's why I wanted just to show people that, like, I have felt so lost in my 20s, and showing that, like, it can change and it can be different, like, at different years is so important. It doesn't just have to be this one part of your journey that you're on.
And I think where we all grow up and we have everything sort of written out in stone, you know, you go to nursery, you go to primary school, you go to junior school, you go to secondary school, and the next part of your life is already always planned out. So you don't have to think about it for yourself. But then actually coming out of university, or those sort of static years, you were then left and you're like, oh my God, I have this whole world, or I have this whole life, and I have no idea what to do or where to go. And it was really the first time that you're really sort of on your own to, like, navigate that. And I'm still navigating it, and I think I always will be. I think even past my 20s you still will be, but that's been a journey, I think, to even get through.
So has there been, like, one key moment in your 20s that you think has, like, really stood out to you, or, like, has it taught you anything?
Yes and no. I've got a good and a bad one. So I think the good one was my amazing run club that I'm part of, These
Yeah.
Girls Run. And I joined just over a year ago. And I remember joining when I wasn't in a very good headspace mentally. I was quite depressed. I was quite anxious. And I was just like, just do it. Just go on this beautiful sunny run in Clapham Common
Yeah.
with a group of girls. And it genuinely, it sounds really extreme and dramatic, but it has changed my whole life. I think just being open to such an incredible group of girls, being in that community, just being situated with people that share your interests but are so lovely to the core has just been so different from what I've been used to.
Yeah.
And my friends are amazing, but I think that sense of community, for me anyway, I really missed. I
Yeah.
think where I had grown up in a very close household, I had very close friends at school, you're just always part of such a rich community. For me, coming into like my 20s, I just didn't have that. And I think a lot of girls in the run club also felt like they didn't have that, especially moving to London, where it's such a big city and you feel like, oh my God, it's death by loneliness almost. But actually having them has completely changed my life and opened up so many opportunities. And I was saying this to you earlier, if I hadn't have gone to that run club, I wouldn't have built up the confidence to then go to HPC, and like we would have never have met. Bex. Like I don't think our lives would ever have crossed if we didn't both make that decision. And I think I owe so much to Molly and These Girls Run, because it has just taught me the power of a sisterhood and just being around people that share your lifestyle and what you want out of life and your values. And it gave me a focus, I think, especially when I was going through a really dark period. It gave me a focus that, you know, 2 days a week, I'd be getting up, I'd be running with the amazing girls, we'd be grabbing a coffee, we'd be starting our Saturday right, we'd, I don't know, go off on adventures and retreats and all of this amazing stuff that I just can't even wrap my head around, and that I just know I wouldn't have never had that chance or that opportunity. So yeah, it has been incredible, and I'm so proud of myself for even doing it, because the person that I was, like I said, like a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have never had the courage to go into a group that of knowing no one and being scared. And I felt like, oh my God, like no one's going to like me, or everyone's going to have friends, you know, I'm going to be left out. But actually the premise of, you know, our group is that no one is ever left out. And I have met my bestest friend, one of my bestest friends through the run club. And my other bestest friend, I've dragged her to the run club and she runs with me now. And I've been friends with her for like 9 years and she's never run with me, which is just crazy. And, you know, we've done amazing opportunities that I never would have done in like social media and like photo shoots. And just, it genuinely blows my mind. And our run club has been in Vogue and the Evening Standard we've been into. Like, I can't even, like little me would never have even dreamt of this opportunity. And it doesn't feel like that though. It just feels like I'm hanging with my mates constantly. So yeah, that has been the best thing. And I'm just so grateful that I was lucky enough to find this group. Because, you know, it opened me up to meeting you. And I just think it's a part of, I think, your 20s that people don't actually credit enough, is that, you know, you settle down, you have your job, and you think, okay, I've got friends, you know, I've got my friends from home, or I've met my friends through university or school, and that's it. But actually, you grow and you develop, your friendships change, what you want out of a friendship also changes. Like, my lifestyle changed massively. I no longer wanted to go out all the time. I wanted to wake up on a Saturday morning and grab a croissant and a coffee and go for a run. So I feel like I was really yearning for that atmosphere and that environment and that community. And I'm just, I feel so lucky that I've met them at this point in my life, because it's changed my life. It really has.
Yeah, you should be really proud of that. And I think even the fact that you're saying like our run club, like you obviously feel such a big part of it, which is so amazing. I think for myself personally, like my story is the other side, because I'm like born and bred in London. Like I haven't had to make that move, and I think it's only now where I've started to make some changes in my life that I've kind of been the same. And I'm like, oh, I have some really amazing friends, but there's also been people that I've kind of had to drift away from a little bit. And I wanted to meet people who, like you, who want to go out on a run. Like we ended up doing loads of our marathon training together, which wasn't mad, but so amazing.
I think I convinced you to sign up for Brighton with me.
Did.
I was like, Bex, do you want to sign up?
Yeah, and then we did loads of our training. Like none of my other friends would have done that with me, which is completely fine. I don't have to, but yeah, I was kind of got to that place a lot later on in my 20s. So it's hard, and you should be really proud that you've done that as well. Like I can't imagine moving to such a big city, but it's so amazing that you have that community now, and you say like that sisterhood, and you can just like outside of the run club as well. I know you do loads of social stuff with the girls and everything, so it's kind of moved on from not even just running. You've now got friends that you can like chill with or confide in when you need it, and all of these things. So that is so amazing.
Yeah, and I think it was just navigating that, and I think it was actually believing that you can have a life outside of drinking and alcohol. And don't get me wrong, I love a glass of Prosecco every now and then, and I love going out with my friends, but actually it became quite, and we've spoken about this, it became quite a toxic part of my life. And actually my values and what I wanted in my life have always been, I always loved sport, I've always loved moving and exercising and running, and then it has just been that sort of focus. And you know, I love the fact that we trained together for our marathon. We did so many long runs together, and we'd always finish with brunch or something. And
I think this is actually the first time I've seen you in normal clothes.
I know. I was like, Bex hasn't seen me with makeup on or like my hair cut or whatever.
And you're not in like a running vest and trainers.
I know, sweat dripping down my face. And that's actually been really lovely, because I never believed that I could sort of have both in London. And I think London is amazing and I love it wholeheartedly, but I think there's so much societal pressure to go out drinking, and with work there's always like work events or socials, or it's like it's so easy to, you know, hang out with your friends at the pub, whereas actually hanging out with your friends on a run is amazing, and it has done wonders for my mental health and my physical health and just my stress and everything. But it is, I think for me, the biggest learning thing was actually realizing that there is a community away from alcohol, and going out. And don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not cussing anyone that does do that, but I think where I used to do that, you just grow up, you know, your tastes change and what you value in life changes. And it was always so fearful of, actually, if I was to do that, I'd be on my own. I'd be the only person that doesn't want to drink or doesn't want to do that. And you end up doing a lot just to fit in. Yeah. But actually having the run club and the girls and this community, and even us hanging out, has never revolved around alcohol. No. It's always revolved around doing something that's going to help us feel good. Yeah. And we chat like anything. It's like a personal therapy session when we go for our long runs or whatever. It's just it's, for me, it was great, just because it meant that I can sort of mesh the things that I love the most together, and make some amazing friendships. And even on a personal note, I think it's just taught me so much about being courageous and not letting your anxiety or the fear of the unknown or the fear of something bad happening like getting in the way of it, and just sort of having the strength to overcome that. And I really hope that I do carry on like with that strength and courage, because even just looking back at what I've done in the last year, I'm like, oh my God, that I would have never have even thought that I would have been capable. Even that marathon, I was like, Jesus, I would never have been able to do that. No, I think that is just the start. Like, you've built that confidence now. And I remember when we met, I think you came up to me. I think I was just standing like on my own at this run club, like, oh gosh. And I still feel like that when I go, which is crazy, because Bex, I would have never have done that. Like, I would have never have had the guts inside me to go up to anyone. And I don't even know how we became talking, but we did, and I'm so grateful for it. But I would have never have been that person in a group setting to
do that.
Yeah. So yeah, and I know now that you would do the same.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when we still go to HPC and we don't necessarily
big
have
shout
each
out
other.
To HPC as
well. Because it's mad.
Yeah, no, it's so true.
Crazy.
Like, but that's what I mean. You can carry that confidence forward with you now, and I feel like you're just building on it. Like, you lead run clubs like, with a group of girls, which is amazing. I remember I said that to you as well. I was like, how is that? Like, how does that feel to be like the leader and a group of girls come and meet and you're like, come on everyone, like you're the one doing that. So I think that's something to be like so proud of. That's amazing.
Still doesn't feel real.
So is there like something that in your life, like what's the hardest thing you think you've had to go through in your 20s?
So I was in quite a toxic work environment last year, and it's quite hard to talk about just because I feel like I've wiped so much of it from my mind. But I think where I have always been a very high achiever in life, I think I had a very great childhood, but we were very studious, and I went to a very good school and we went to university, and I just sort of, it sounds really bad, but I just nailed everything.
Yeah.
I just always got on to the next stage of my life. And then when I started my career, I was like, oh my God, yes, I'm smashing this. This is so good. And then when I switched jobs last year and I went to a different company, I was on a high. I'd come out of an amazing job. I came out feeling so accomplished, and then I was just torn down, and there was a lot of factors I think that played into it, but ultimately I don't focus on that anymore. I just focus on the effect that it had on me and how I try to overcome it. But for me, it got to the point where I was just in this environment that was making myself so anxious, making me tear myself down. I'd lost all my confidence, and it's funny, like I was looking back at photos of myself, sounds really vain, photos of myself from like that time last year, and I just don't reckon, like you can see that there's just nothing behind my eyes, which is so sad. Yeah. And I remember thinking back at the time, I just don't recognise myself. Like I'm not a crier, and I was crying like every single day. I was having panic attacks, and I had just become so paralysed with my anxiety, and I knew it was directly related to the environment that I was in. But from where I had this sense of achievement, I felt like I couldn't leave because I would have failed, and I hate failing or feeling like I'm failing myself. And I remember I was in that environment for quite some time before I knew I had to actually take a step out, because it was getting to a point where it was affecting like my physical health, my mental health massively. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lost interest in the things that would always help me, aka running. I didn't want to run anymore. And I remember saying to my mum, I FaceTimed her and I was like, Mum, I think I'm gonna quit. And I didn't have anything else lined up. And I remember thinking, okay, you're fine, you've got money. If all else fails, you can go back home. And then my head was spiraling with all of this. But I knew in my gut that I had to do this, because I didn't want to fully, God knows what I would have done, but I just remember thinking, if you don't do this now, you're no longer going to be Mink at all. And I remember I was so nervous to tell my mum, and my parents are amazing. They're so supportive, and they would have never have thought otherwise. But I remember thinking, oh my God, my mum is going to hate me. She's going to think I'm failing. Like, her daughter's got this amazing job in the city. She's smashing life. And that was the thing. I was really feeding into that narrative of like all my friends, all my family were saying, oh my God, you're smashing it. London looks so good on you. And I'd really tried to sort of make myself believe that and think, okay, just push through. Everyone goes through bad times. Everyone goes through stressful moments. But it was that switch of thinking, I remember I did a tally in my phone of like every bad day that I did. And I remember over a month, it was literally like 29 out of the 31 days. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a problem here, because actually it's now the norm and I don't want that. And I remember telling my mum, and I was so panicked. And she was like, you're fine. Like, you'll be okay. Like, you've got us. You know, if anything happens, you can come home. And I mean, she would have loved that. But I remember thinking, you need to do that. And I remember thinking I had a sense of, it's weird because I've never been okay with not knowing what's going to happen. I'm quite a control freak in the sense of I always need to know what's going to happen. I'm a planner. I'm an organised freak. Everything is scheduled in my diary.
Yeah.
But actually, I remember coming away thinking, I'm actually really content knowing that I have made that decision for me.
Yeah.
And then I remember my mum told my dad, and my dad I love my dad and I know he loves me, but he's like a typical dad. Like, he'll send me okay messages and not like, whereas my mum will send me like love hearts and everything.
Yeah.
And I remember he messaged me the next day saying, I'm super proud of you. You know, no job is worth, you know, losing yourself for, being so stressed for.
Yeah.
And it was just that reminder of we live, especially in London, in such a work, achieve, you know, smash your goal, smash life mentality, which is amazing. But equally, when you don't feel like you are doing that, for me, I felt like I was just crashing.
Yeah.
It's literally all or nothing.
Yeah.
And then when I was on that nothing side, I felt myself go, oh my God, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So that was really hard. And then I left, I handed in my notice, and then I was like, right, I've got to find another job. And then I was still sort of reeling, I think, from everything that had happened. But I then am now in an amazing job. But it really only took me until like the last sort of 2 months. So what are we, like 7 months since I left to actually begin to talk about it or to begin to understand what I went through and the extent of it. Because I think I was in such a survivor mode or like a fight or flight mode of, okay, I just have to get through. I have to, I don't know, I feel like it was, you know, and I'm sure you're the same of when you're in that situation, you just sort of get very tunnel vision and you just focus on literally surviving. My only thing was, you have to just make it through today. You have to make it through today and that's all good. And that's not how to live.
No, it's not at all.
And I remember saying to my mum, I was like, I don't want my only goal is to get through the day. That is so disheartening. Like, my life is so much bigger than just surviving. I want to live. And I remember thinking, you're not living by doing this. You know, no amount of money or no amount of whatever they're giving you is worth losing yourself or losing your confidence. And it's hard because there's a part of me that's still so bitter that I let myself be in that environment. But you aren't to know, and I know nothing is perfect in life. And I think for me now, it's just, I'm so much more open talking about it with my friends and my family. And with myself, I think actually processing how I felt and why I felt a certain way. And for me, it's just made me realise that, yes, it's amazing to work hard on goals, but actually I will always now unapologetically put myself first. It might be selfish, but I think I know now in myself, every decision that I do it for myself. So I've been great at saying no to stuff, which is really hard, I think, especially really in like a social setting. And like, I'm such a people pleaser, so that has been really hard to balance. But I think for me, it's and it's not a lesson because I know I'm still learning with it, but I know I'm going to look back and really value myself for making that decision and being really brave. And I'm so proud of myself for doing that. Because I never would have. I think I would have just allowed myself, God knows what would have happened, but allowed myself to lose myself even more. So yeah, I'm really proud of myself for doing that, because I remember thinking, you're 26, like, how are you quitting a job? Like, what are you doing? Like, everyone else is smashing it. And you just have such a comparison in life and in your 20s and around your friendship circle. And I think I was so used to being an achiever, or I was so used to being not glorified, that makes me sound really bad, but just someone that would look up to and be like, oh, she's doing fine, she's doing amazing, you know, she's got her stuff together, she's running, she's got an amazing job, she's living in London. Whereas actually those were some of the darkest days that I had.
Yeah.
And it's frightening, I think, to look back on that time, because I'm like, you really just try to survive out there. And it was all behind closed doors. I
Yeah.
remember doing it all, like crying on my own, and I've come out of it now so much stronger. But I do just remember thinking, I'm too young for this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too young to have almost like a breakdown over work. Like, my career's only just begun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, yeah. It's
Yeah.
so weird talking about it, because I've not
Yeah.
properly talked about it.
Yeah. No, you should be
But-
so proud of yourself. Like, it takes so much courage to do something like that.
Yeah.
Like, whether that's with a job or a friendship or a relationship or whatever, like, to actually think, okay, this isn't right for me anymore. I'm going to walk away. It's so scary. Like, as you said, you didn't have another job to go to at the time, but that just shows how much it was affecting you. And I think when you feel like you're losing yourself, like I've been in that situation before, when you feel like you're losing yourself, you have to make that change, and I don't think you'll ever regret it. And it can still be scary, and it can feel like that for a little while, but knowing that you've done that, like you're even saying now, you're so glad that you did that, because you were kind of just going down a dark path, and it's so hard when like you feel like you're going through that yourself as well. And I think it's good to do something like this sometimes, because then you reflect on it, and it's another part of, I guess, like healing to get past it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I know it's not easy to talk about sometimes, but I want to show that on this podcast as well. Like you said, I was only 26. Why was I quitting a job? Or you felt that pressure, but just because you're a certain age, like you don't have to have X, Y, Z like all figured out. It can change, and you're so much happier now. And as you say, you're in a job that you love, which is so amazing. So yeah, I think it's great to kind of show that. Was there anything like in particular that helped you kind of get through that, or to get to the next stage?
I think when it was happening, I was just like head down, get through the day, which it's not the best way to be. And I remember looking back, and like I said, it's all a bit of a blur. I can't really remember like day to day, like how I was feeling. But I remember afterwards, then I sort of then went like straight into my new job, which was amazing. And I have the most amazing friends and family around me. Everyone was so supportive. And I was always very, it sounds weird because my family would never think otherwise, but I was always shocked at how lovely they were when I told them I was quitting. Not that they would have ever thought different, but I just, again, had it in my head that they're going to think, why is she throwing this away? Like, she's so young, she's got her dream job, etc. But actually, just hearing that we're still proud of you, you're doing amazing, that was the biggest thing. Like, I just really lent on my friends and my family.
They wanted the best for you.
Yeah, and it's obviously they do, but in my head I just couldn't see that myself. And then getting out in my run club helped massively, because it meant that I had a focus like every week, was surrounding myself with amazing people, and actually talking about it. And it's crazy because I remember telling my best friend, I didn't tell her once during this whole time how I was feeling, but I remember literally texting her saying, hey babes, I've quit my job today. And then she was like, what?
Why?
Like, why have we not spoken about this? And she's like my core, like she's my bestest friend. And in my head, I just couldn't, I was I think I was probably embarrassed. I was ashamed, and I was like, I didn't want it to be real. And like me telling people then that I had quit was making it so real. And then we had this massive conversation, and now I'm so much more open with it. But I just remember thinking, everyone's going to be upset, or everyone's going to be disappointed. I've let people down. But actually, for me, I just really lent on them in that moment, because I knew that I needed it. And then having the support of my run club, having that focus, probably why I signed up for the marathon, because it was a good distraction. And then actually just getting out and having like professional help. Like it was only like 2 months ago that I decided to see a therapist about it, because I felt I was out of the environment. I was in my new job, but there was just a lot of stuff that I still wasn't able to do on my own.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to actually sit down and really process and heal so that I can sort of shut that chapter of my life. And which is crazy because I felt like I didn't warrant going to therapy because I wasn't as depressed as I should have been or as anxious as I should have been to go to therapy, which is bonkers because that has been amazing. And I remember we had a conversation about it last week, and it's still that I still feel this thing of when I tell people, oh, I'm in therapy, like I need to whisper about it, or I need to be like, or then people might look at you and think, oh my God, is she okay? Like, but which is crazy because I think it's amazing what people do with professional help. Yeah. And that has just taught me so much and is really actually helping me go through it, because I think for me anyway, there's only so much that getting out of the environment and being around love and affection and a community can do. And actually I know that I needed to have professional support to get me through it. But I remember thinking I have to whisper about it, or I have to not let people know, or like if it's in my diary I have to put it as private appointment, whereas now I'm like I'm going to therapy. I'm seeing a therapist. I know. It's great.
It's crazy. It still does feel like I've been going to therapy for almost 2 years and I still feel a bit like that. Like, like almost like a whisper, or like, I think I feel different with different people. Like I felt very comfortable talking to you about it.
Yes.
But I mentioned this on last week's episode. I feel like when you give someone a little bit of that vulnerability, then they give it back to you, and you feel like you can be open with someone, because then we had a whole conversation about it. But you have to kind of like feel comfortable with that. But I still feel the same. Like I don't know why it is. I think it's just still like a bit of a taboo, or as you say, like people were like, oh, but what's wrong with you? And it's like, well,
I remember saying it to my brother. I think it was, my therapy day is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I remember saying, oh yeah, I can meet you after for dinner, but it'll be after therapy. And he was like, therapy? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I remember when I was saying to my mum, like, oh yeah, I'm going to have therapy. And she was like, okay. And then my mum's amazing, but she still sort of not skirts around it. She'll talk about it, but you can tell that she's still very worried. Yeah. And I think it should be something that's championed, and it should be something that's, I think so, like encouraged, because it's so important. And I think, mental health in this age and in your 20s especially is so difficult. And for me, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety, whether it's, self-confidence, you just go through so much. And I think actually having those guardrails up with a therapist, for me anyway, has just changed the way that I think and my behaviour. And I notice it just slowly sort of like working in really odd ways, or like how I used to react and now I don't necessarily do that.
Or you realise like why you are reacting to something in that certain way, because you realise that actually maybe you've got certain triggers, and this is kind of playing on that, and that's why you feel a certain way to a situation. No, I think it's amazing. I think it should be spoken about a lot more. Like I probably wouldn't be doing this because it's helped me so much with my confidence and wanting to speak out and kind of use my voice and know who I am. I think I always had that in me, but I just never wanted to kind of let it out or know how to. I was always said I was too shy. I don't think I was ever shy. I think I just didn't know how to kind of express myself. And it's helped me massively. So I think it is something that we should all be talking about. And
go to therapy.
Go to therapy. No, I also appreciate it is not for everybody as well, or difficult to access at times. So, but if it is something you think about, like for me, it was one of my best friends going, and she was quite open about talking about it. She's very open about talking about it, actually. And she kept mentioning it, and that got my head going, because it was something I had wanted to do for a while. It took me a year to actually, from talking about it with her to going, because I just didn't know where to start. I didn't know what to say. Like when you sit down with a therapist and they say like, so why are you here? And you're like, I don't really know what to say, because I've got a good job, I've got a nice home, I've got a great family. Like, as you said, like, do I warrant being here? But nobody should feel like that at all. And yeah, it was my friend talking about it that then kind of encouraged me, I think, to go and to feel more comfortable in myself with that. So yeah, it's a great thing. But I wanted to ask you as well, where you say with like your run club and changing your job, and moving to London, like, do you feel like your relationships have changed as well, like friendships, whatever, like the people you're around as you kind of moved through your 20s?
Yeah, massively. I think like coming into London when I had graduated, you're sort of just then like pushed with the same sort of friends that you knew. And we were very social, you know, we'd always go out, we all lived very close together. And then obviously lockdown happened, and then I came back, and again it was that same group of friends. And we were all great, we were all very, very close. But then I think for me, it was just like my priorities changed. You know, I no longer wanted to spend my life like socializing as much or drinking as much, or that wasn't like the core of why I wanted to be friends with certain people. But I think it makes you realize that actually a lot of the times friendships are built around that social aspect or drinking, and actually when you take that away, there wasn't really a true friendship to begin with. And like my core best friends, my two lovely girls from home, we live thousands of miles away from each other, thousands, maybe hundreds, but we're still so close. And like one of my best friends, Jo, is traveling the world right now, and it's crazy because we have I feel like this year, even though she's been literally the other side of the planet, we are so close. And for me, that is the true value of a friendship, is when you can literally be on a mountain and you're texting someone and you don't have to text them all the time, but you know that they're there. So for me, it was like my 20s has been a lot of friendships, but I've had my core people that have always stayed with me. But then I think sort of coming out of the last couple of years, and why I joined Run Club was because I wanted to be around people that enjoyed running and being active, and just that sense of community that I think is so often missed. And it's also so often missed with like girl friendship groups as well. I think where there's always that, where it can be quite like bitchy and cliquey and quite competitive. That's why I love like the community that I'm in, because no one cares about what anyone's doing. Everyone's just there to run, have a bit of fun, go for a coffee. And I know that from everyone else is that there's such true friendships that have been formed from that. And it's not just because we all see each other every week. We all do everything together, or you just have that. And it's hard to put it into words. It's just, you know that they're like an anchor to you. You know that if there was anything that were to happen, or if you were in distress or something had happened, you know that any one of or for me anyway, I know that any one of those girls would do something. And I think for me, I've just learned the value of friendships and relationships, and that actually it's okay to sort of move yourself away from a certain group or a certain situation, because you know yourself what you want. And don't get me wrong, it's really difficult, I think, to come to that way of thinking, because for me it's that fear of, oh my god, you're going to be on your own, or like you're going to be the odd one out, or no one's going to want to do that also. But actually, and I credit my bestest friend for this, Khadija, because she has taught me so much. We are like polar opposites, but it's one of those where you just are best friends. And the one thing that I love the most about her is the fact that she's just so unapologetic. If she doesn't want to do something, she won't do it. Whereas I'm always such a people pleaser that I can't say no. So I remember back when, you know, we had a group of friends, I would always want to go out, or no, I would always go out, but I didn't want to go out. Whereas if she doesn't want to go out, she doesn't want to go out. And she's taught me that. And I love it, because I'm just like, whereas me like 3-4 years ago would have been like, okay, I need to go out because I need to still be friends with them, which is bonkers. Whereas now I'm like, if I don't want to do something, I won't do it. I'll only do something that I want to do. And I think that comes also with growing. I think growing through your 20s, navigating it. But for me, you know, relationships change, and I think that's okay. It's great. And I think, you know, you can't expect to be around the same people as you were when you were like 18, 19
Yeah.
or in 20, let alone when you're later. And I'm sure my friendships are going to change even more as I go into my 30s.
Yeah.
But I think when you sort of lean into that understanding and that comfort that actually things changing and growing aren't a negative thing,
Yeah.
it's a good thing, because
So
eventually, you know, I'd love to have my friendships where we grow together.
Yeah.
You know, we grow into life together,
Yeah.
because that's how I see my friendships and my
Yeah.
relationships, is that we're all changing, we're all growing, we're all evolving. But if you can sort of all stay together,
Yeah.
which is great. And, you know, likes, dislikes change. But
Yeah.
I think having that sense of comfort, knowing that my friendships right now are true, and that, you know, I've met you and you know, you're one of my greatest friends, and we haven't even known each other that long.
Yeah.
But the fact that, you know, we train together and, you know, it's crazy, because I feel like in a world at the moment, especially like with social media, where everything can be quite like give or take, or like what am I getting out of a relationship, or what am I getting out of a friendship? Whereas I don't see that with any of my friendships. You know, or like with you doing this podcast, I'm like, Bex is smashing it, she's doing amazing. Or like all of my friends' achievements,
I don't to do well,
exactly,
right?
I don't have that sense of like jealousy from them or anything. I genuinely, you know, their achievements are my achievements as well. And I think when you surround yourself with people like that only want the best for you, it's just such an encouraging environment. And I know that I wouldn't have been able to quit my job last year if I didn't have the people around me. So I'm so thankful for them, because they are all like my core, and I wouldn't have been able to get through that year without them. So it's just that thing, I think, where I used to be so precious and so worried about things changing, and I wanted everything to be the same all the time. I just now sort of really open myself up to it, which is crazy, because I never used to be that person. I was quite a control freak, that I wanted everything to be the same because I was used to it. I know how I feel. But actually now I'm like, okay, well, people change, people move on. That's okay. Everyone's on a different journey.
Completely.
And that is one thing that is, you know, Run Club and my friendships and my relationships have told me, is that actually it's okay if things don't turn out the way you think they are. And if people come and go in your life, that's absolutely okay. It's a normal thing to happen.
It is completely normal.
But I think when you're like 20, you just sort of, especially coming into London, like you sort of hang on to people, and like as a comfort blanket, you just think, okay, these are my people, this is what I know. But actually, for me, having that courage to go to Run Club or go to different Run Clubs, meet new people, you don't know who you're going to meet, which is just...
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I saw that definitely, like, I remember the first job that I had, and most of the girls there weren't from London, and I could see that which of course they were going to do, they all really, as you said, like, kind of just grabbed onto each other. It was a very social office. We went out a lot, we drank together a lot, and they all became such good friends. And I always felt a bit on the outside, but I also was like, I don't really have time to spend my weekends with these people from work, because I had my group of friends from high school and like primary school and here that have kind of carried on with me, and they're all still in London, and I could see them like not needing to be together, but a lot of them had just moved here and they had met these amazing girls and they were like, oh, holding on to that. And I always felt a bit on the outside, and they're all still friends now. But also a part of me didn't want to just kind of throw myself in there. But I think you're so right. Like, your friendships can change. And I didn't know if you had advice for someone who maybe has just moved to London or is going to, or not just to London, Manchester, Australia, a different place in the world. Like, what advice would you give to them if they've just got there and they're feeling a bit lost and they don't know how to meet people?
I think it's completely normal to feel like that. And I think there's definitely still times now where I feel like, you know, a tiny fish in a very, very big pond. But I think for me, it's it's probably not the best advice, but I would say fake it till you make it. I fake confidence all the time.
Yeah.
You know, going to Run Club for the first time, I had a massive smile on my face. Did I want to smile? Probably not. But you have
to do it sometimes.
Why not? And
Yeah.
I think for me, I started to tell myself, instead of thinking why, think why not? Like, why wouldn't you do that? You know, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And it is scary, and you're going to meet people that you don't like, but then equally the people that you do like can just open yourself up to
completely.
an amazing thing. So I think, yes, a bad thing could happen, but that shouldn't stop you, because an absolutely amazing thing can come out of it.
Yeah.
So moving is hard. It's very daunting.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, there's so many communities out there, even if it's not running. I mean, I know I love running, but there's so many sporting communities or like social communities.
Just about finding your thing.
Just finding your thing.
Yeah.
And your thing can also change.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to stick to one thing and then that be it.
Yeah.
But get yourself out there. And it's hard, but I promise you what you will get out of it once you do it is so much more rewarding, rather than that initial anxiety around like making that decision or making that choice.
Yeah. So having kind of reflected on your 20s, I guess, in the last 40 minutes or however long we've been here, how do you feel now, like where you are today in your 20s? And like, is there anything you would change, or do you still feel like you're on a journey, or like, are you where you thought you'd be when you moved to London 5 years ago, however long it was?
I think I stopped thinking about where I wanted to be very, very quite quickly. I think I was just sort of, you know, chilling through life, like getting a job, this is all good. And then now actually I love where I am. I love my life. I can say that I feel very content. I feel very accomplished. But that's not it, if that makes sense. I know that there's still so much more to do and to get out of it. So I'm just happy, like, coasting through life at the moment.
Yeah.
I feel great, but it's taken a long time. And like I said, I feel like it's really only been the last sort of year that I have felt like that. And I know that I'm not fully there yet as well. I know that there's still so much more like growing that I can do. But it is a journey, and I feel like, you know, self-confidence and learning to love yourself and learning to just grow into the person that you are is a lifelong journey. And I know that it's not going to just happen overnight, or I'm going to one day wake up and think, yeah, this is me.
Yeah.
Love this. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's so much that I would like say to myself, but I think, I am happy.
Yeah.
I'm content.
I think that shows as well, where you said a minute ago, when you see people around you doing well and you feel so happy for them, I think that shows so much about you and how comfortable and content and you feel with yourself. Because I think if you don't, you can sometimes find it hard to feel happy for other people. I know I've definitely felt that in the past, where I felt kind of like, where's my life going? What am I doing? Am I on the right path? And it's so easy then to see everybody around you and think, oh my gosh, but I'm not engaged, or I haven't got a boyfriend, or I haven't done this, and all of these things. But when you feel happy in yourself, you can have so much happiness for other people, and you realise that by them doing that, it doesn't take it from you. You can still be doing your thing, and you're obviously so there, and that's so amazing to see. But I think that's a credit to you for where you are in your life, to be able to feel that for your friends and to feel that for people around you.
And don't get me wrong, I think, you know, I'm a girl. I have my moments where I'm like,
of course,
I see people get engaged or get married, and I'm like, oh my God, should I be doing that?
Yeah.
And it is ingrained into society and yourself that you have to be on a certain path. But I think for me, it's that thinking of, that's amazing, that's your life, that's your journey. You know, this is my life, this is my journey, sort of thing. I can stand on the sidelines and cheer and spectate, and I would love for you to do the same for me, but I'm not going to let your decisions or where you are at with your life affect my life. Because like you said, you know, it doesn't lessen anything that I've achieved or what I'm going to achieve. It is hard though. I think, you know, you
There's
it's
definitely
ingrained.
pressures,
Yeah,
isn't
there's
there?
so much pressure.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I've really lent in to that belief of, you know what, it will happen.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Things will fall into place when they fall into place.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to life than like worrying
Completely.
and that pressure of, oh, is this the right time? Shall I be doing this? Shall I be doing
Yeah.
that? Because it doesn't ultimately change anything.
No.
I think as long as you're content and you're happy with the decisions that you're making,
Yeah.
I'm going to just ride this out until I don't feel like that. And then if I
Yeah.
don't feel like that, I'll move on to something else
Yeah.
that does.
Exactly. And I mean, look where you've come with your run club and everything. And I was going to ask, if somebody does want to get involved with These Girls Runs, like, where should they go? What should they do? Should they follow you? Or
So we have an Instagram, which is These Girls Runs. And then we also have a website where all of our runs and really cool events are listed. And we've got over 10 locations in the UK.
Wow.
So it's not just London.
Yeah.
So we've got girls up in like Manchester, Nottingham, Edinburgh.
Yeah.
To really help sort of help them navigate like coming out of university
Yeah.
or coming out of their 20s into their 20s, to really encourage them to be around like-minded girls.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all on our Instagram.
Honestly, I wish I had something like that when I came out of uni, or even when I was still at uni. Yeah, that would have been amazing.
But it's the thing, it's so, even in London there's so many run clubs, so
Yeah.
I feel like I love my one, but there's so many. So it's for
Yeah.
everyone, and you have different groups for different people. It's so inclusive, which is just such a lovely thing to
Yeah.
watch, because I really feel like it's blossomed in the last year.
Yeah.
So I would say, yeah, it's all probably on social media.
Yeah.
There is something for someone out there. It doesn't have to be running, but
Yeah. There's always something.
yeah.
Oh, amazing. And my final question, which is what I want to ask all of my guests, is, if you could go back to the beginning of your 20s, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give yourself?
I think I would tell myself that an ending is just a beginning, that it's okay to move away from something or say no to a situation, and you just don't know what is going to lie for you after that.
Yeah.
So I no longer see an ending as something closing. I just see it as an opportunity to walk into something much greater, or just walk into something different. And I think for me that has been something that I've really, really learnt in the last year. And be brave, be bold, be courageous. You know, you only live once. I believe that. So I feel like you have to take the chances. But ultimately, I know myself, and I feel like I would just give myself a big hug and just say, you will be okay. You're so much stronger than you also think you are. Because
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
you doubt
that's
yourself,
amazing.
don't you? You just think,
completely.
oh my God.
You do. And I think sometimes you feel like you just, well, that's also why I created this. I feel like this is the podcast that I needed when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s.
Absolutely.
I needed something like this to hear other people's stories and to hear that there's not just one path that you should be on and there's a right or wrong way. So I think that's so amazing. Like, you're going to be okay. You're doing better than you thought. And if it's not okay, like, it's not the end. There's always room for change or for something better to happen. So thank you so much for coming on, Manika. I love that so much. I think, honestly, I think that will help so many people. Just understanding like how they can either get help, whether that's therapy or reach out to run clubs, meet new people and just navigate in life, because moving to a new city is scary. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Bex,
for
having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please continue to like, subscribe, share and follow us on socials. See you next week for another episode.